Good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Lower Providence Township Board of Supervisors for Thursday, October 20th, 2016. Would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Good evening, Deb. Would you please call the roll?
My pleasure. Mr. Shagini.
Here.
Ms. Ekman. Here. Mr. Duffy.
Here.
Mr. McFarland.
Here.
Ms. Zimmerman.
Thank you very much. Prior to the meeting this evening, an executive session was held to discuss legal, real estate, and personnel matters. The first item on the agenda tonight is the consent agenda consisting of the minutes of our previous meeting, also the minutes of all of our boards and commissions, as well as the monthly reports from our department heads and fiscal matters with the authorization for payment of bills. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make that motion.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board? From the audience? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I'm an abstention, Jason.
I'm sorry,
Sorry.
abstention. So that's 4 ayes and 1 abstention. New business, item 2A, approval of a resolution appointing the township manager. Very happy to announce tonight that after a lengthy process that we are going to bring up our new manager. We have a new manager to bring before you for a vote, and I'd like to introduce Don Delamater. Don joins us from Hilltown Township. Prior to that, he served for 20 years in East Norton Township as both a manager and assistant manager. He has a wonderful record as a township manager and a municipal employee. We are quite fortunate that he will be joining us here at Lower Providence, and we're very happy to welcome him tonight. So I'd like to ask for a motion approving Don Delamater as township manager.
I will make that motion.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Don, and welcome to Lower Providence. Don will be joining us on November 21st, and we look forward to having you.
Mr. Chairman, may I add before we leave that topic, I just wanted to mention that we as a board and Patrick and I as the subcommittee reviewed dozens of resumes, interviewed more than 20 people, I believe, and the board certainly approximately 10, and from my perspective, and I think the board would share it, no one had the demeanor, the experience, and the outlook that we feel would be appropriate for this township that was even close to what we felt Don had, and we're very, very happy to have him join us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well said. Item 2B on the agenda tonight is consideration of a resolution approving the preliminary final land development plan of LD 16-02 Classic Coachworks expansion with a minor land development plan at 3949 Ridge Pike. And I believe John Rice has information, and so does Mike Brzezinski. Good evening, Mr. McLennan.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry,
McLennan?
John, to spring this on you at the last minute like this,
That's
but
okay.
this is a work in progress, and I appreciate all of your indulgence. I don't know if you...
Let me give a little background.
Sure.
Just, Keith and the applicant were here 2 weeks ago, and at the time, we went over the review letters that night, and there were some issues that got resolved. So as a result of that, you know, we prepared a draft resolution, and I guess it got circulated this week to the applicant. Mike and I spoke today, and basically, you know, I think what came about is you have some reviews. You have a McMahon review that's got a May date on it, and there were plans submitted after that, one of which was the middle of September. I think September 16th, September 14th was the last revision, and that occurred after Mike and Tim Woodrow visited the site, looked at the existing driveway, and that did away with some of the driveway HOP improvement comments that were in the May letter. So, so just, you know, once, I think over the last couple of days, Keith has responded to the resolution, and basically what's in front of you is, nothing's changed other than the compliance paragraph 3 with the McMahon Associates comments. And some of those, I actually had made some changes today, but I received on my phone in the car from Mr. McLennan some additional issues, and I think he's correct that these are all issues that relate to the traffic impact fee, the PennDOT HOP. There's a comment in the McMahon letter that deals with fees in lieu of if improvements are being waived. So the change then in the resolution, and I don't know if you have the McMahon letter, if the board has that as an attachment to the resolution, but I have it in front of me, and the paragraphs that, you know, and Mike and Lonnie can address this, I think this was a result of the site visit. The paragraphs that would not be complied with from the McMahon May 31st, 2016 letter are paragraphs 1, 2, and 3, paragraph 7, and paragraphs 16, 17, and 18. And that would eliminate the requirement for a PennDOT HOP permit for this driveway. That would eliminate the traffic impact fee of $30-some thousand. The park and rec fee would remain unchanged. It would also eliminate any other fees in lieu of, and also any, I guess, improvements to the driveway. It's proposed for 20 feet, I believe, and it would stay at 20 feet, not be widened any further than that in terms of ingress and egress into the site. So they're the items, and again, I think it has to do with plans that came in. McMahon was looking at a set of plans that was originally filed in December 2015 and revised in July and then revised in September.
If I might just add a couple comments just to add into what John was saying. The applicant basically heard from the Planning Commission and heard from Township and the staff and consultants about some things that made sense. And we, in conjunction with also learning that the expansion of the building, which is what they are proposing, is not going to increase traffic impacts, but is really going to make their workflow better, more efficient, that the impact, the stuff that if you strictly apply the ordinances, didn't make sense. And so a lot of all this came about, you know, we had this discussion, we learned more, they understood more, they redid the plans, and so they were basically addressing, as part of the evolution of the project, what had been asked of them, and that's what the revision of the plans are. So, you know, we're just getting kind of closer together with this thing, and so some of the, if you will, some of the paper, some of the review letters didn't catch up with the plans. I mean, we're getting a lot of what we asked for. It's just a matter of making everything, documenting it, you know, in the proper way.
So, I mean, in terms of what's in front of the board, I mean, I always prefer to have it all done in advance of the meeting, but based on what I saw Mr. McLennan send to me, it's really addressing the comments that are no longer relevant or applicable in the McMahon letter. The rest of the resolution would remain the same. So paragraph 3 of the resolution would basically say, as an additional sentence, specifically, the applicant need not comply with those paragraphs in the McMahon letter that I read. You know, and the plans dated September 17th, 14th are the plans. So you're taking away those McMahon comments that all deal with the HOP, the traffic impact fee, and improvements at the intersection of the driveway and the state highway. And it's up to the board. I mean, that would be the, you know, the motion to approve the resolution as modified with that revision to paragraph 3 in it.
Lonnie, can you speak to that?
Yes, Tim and I talked about this project this afternoon, and as Mike said, the planning commission instructed Tim and Mike and to meet with the applicant at the site. They reviewed the activities of the project and the driveway, and what's shown on this current plan, September 14th, is what was agreed upon at that site meeting. So we feel that it's more than adequate, the improvements, quote-unquote, that are being shown at the driveway intersection on this plan.
Okay, thank you. John, are you comfortable with the resolution?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm looking at what I got from Keith in terms of revising paragraph 3, and those paragraphs, I mean, normally what I would do with some of the review letters, if they don't apply, I wouldn't incorporate them.
Right.
Or I would just go in and pull out the paragraphs that they have to comply with. I didn't realize there was an issue when we first put this together with all of that in the McMahon letter until the last week or so. So I'm fine with it. You know, subject to the board's approval, I would then make the revisions to the document in front of you, and it would, you know, you can approve it tonight, I think, with those revisions, and then it'll be here for signature, you know, early next week.
Okay, comments from the board?
I just have one comment. So then, on our draft resolution, John, number 6 had to deal with the park and rec fees. Is there an issue with that?
Now, that 4,560 park and rec fee would stay.
Okay.
Yeah. Traffic impact fee, no, but the park and rec fee is not being modified.
I have no wish to delay this any further either, and based on what I'm hearing, both the applicant and the township are in agreement as to the intent of the project. So my only question is, can we hear from you, John, specifically how point 3 is going to be worded so that we can vote knowing specifically? Because I just want to make sure that there's nothing left open so that both the applicant and the township are protected from something being interpreted differently later. That's my only concern.
John, I can help you. I can give you a copy of what I sent you as opposed to reading it on that small screen if it helps.
My eyes aren't that bad.
And I was suggesting that.
No, I've been reading it. I was reading it before the meeting. So here's the sentence that would be added to 3. Specifically, the applicant need not comply with paragraphs 1, 2, 3, 7, 16, 17, and 18 of the McMahon Associates in correspondence based upon the plans last revised September 14th, 2016, which eliminated the requirement for a PennDOT highway occupancy permit and widened the driveway entrance. So all those comments that they're not complying with had to do with really the driveway and the PennDOT issue and the traffic impact fee. So that would be added in there, and the rest of the resolution would stay pretty much as is. And you have the Saldo waivers that are listed on here also. They would not change.
Thank you. So the one other point that we discussed 2 weeks ago was the sidewalk, which would not be done now, but which would be in the approval designated as being committed for a future date as needed.
Correct.
Is that stated somewhere in this?
And
It's not in the resolution.
And we forgot about that.
Yeah.
Both of us forgot about that.
Is it going on the plans?
We can put it on the plans.
I thought we had talked about putting it on the deed, though, right?
Putting some kind of a recorded
Right.
document?
That's fine.
Okay.
We'll do that.
So then, let's add that also to,
7B.
I would probably add that as a paragraph 8 to this resolution. And that should read, you know, in consideration of the waivers set forth in paragraph 7, the applicant will execute a restrictive covenant that will require, how many feet of sidewalk are we talking about?
What was it, say 150?
150 feet.
150 lineal feet
Lineal feet.
of sidewalk, when?
Well,
What's the time?
yeah, that is the tough one to decide, because there really isn't anything down there now. So how about when there's sidewalk required and the neighbors next to on each side?
I thought that was the thought, was that when adjacent sidewalks or adjacent to either side it was being done,
Right.
then this would trigger this action. I thought that's what.
Right, one, not both. So if it happens on either side.
Either side is what we're
Right.
suggesting?
Yeah,
Right, okay. So whenever there's a connection on either side.
Seems to make sense. No problem.
I mean, and that could be never, but,
It could be next week, who knows? Well, it wouldn't be next week, it takes a little while for that to happen.
yeah.
so that would be, I would add that as paragraph 8.
Okay, so if we're moving forward, we have the resolution with the amendments to paragraph 3, plus the addition of a paragraph 8. And then if we do so, does anyone have any issues with taking the resolution inclusive of the 4 waivers all at the same time? No? Okay, is there a motion then to approve preliminary final land development plan LD 16-02 Classic Coach Works expansion minor land development plan at 3949 Ridge Pike as amended as per John Rice?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any additional questions or comments from the board? From the audience? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you
ladies and
very
gentlemen.
much.
Appreciate it very
Good luck with the
much.
project. Item 2C, consideration of an ordinance amending and restating the defined contribution plan for full-time non-uniform employees. John has information about that as well.
This is basically an ordinance which adopts your money purchase plan and trust, the adoption agreement that deals with your full-time non-uniform employees. This was something that was in front of you, I guess, in the spring, Jerry? And the Auditor General made a comment that we needed to adopt an ordinance amending and restating this. So you've already actually approved the agreement. This is the ordinance that'll implement it and basically revoke what we have on the book currently. It's been advertised for public hearing tonight. And it's before the board for consideration and adoption.
Questions or comments from the board? Is there a motion to approve the defined contribution plan for full-time non-uniform employees? Approve the ordinance amending and restating, rather, the defined contribution plan for full-time non-uniform employees.
Make that motion.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Questions or comments from the board? From the audience? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2D, approval of revised defined contribution plan personnel policy, and Jerry Golis has information.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In conjunction with the plan document being restated and the new ordinance adopted, there was some cleanup that needed to be done with the actual personnel policy. One is the contribution rate needed to be increased from 6 to 8%, which reflects the most recent collective bargaining agreement negotiations. The other is it's long-standing practice that the employees are eligible on their first day of employment, but the original plan put in place back in 2002 required a 6-month waiting period. So we also cleaned up that language. And then finally, there was some language in there specific to laws in place at the time. So we eliminated that section and simply put a catch-all terminology in there that it needs to adhere to all state and federal regulations. So we don't find ourselves being tripped up in the future by specific language. And that's what we're requesting the board adopt this revised personnel policy this evening.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Any questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve the revised defined contribution plan personnel policy?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Questions or comments from the board? from the audience? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jerry. Item 2E is the acceptance of the resignation of Fred Walker from the Lower Perkiomen Valley Regional Sewer Authority and the appointment of Peter McFarland to that Regional Sewer Authority. Fred Walker has served for many years as both a member of the local authority here in Lower Providence, as well as our representative to the regional authority. We're very grateful to Fred for his many years of service, and tonight we'll be voting to accept with regret his resignation, but also with gratitude. We'd like to thank Peter McFarland for agreeing to step in to that very important role. So I'd like to make the motion to accept the resignation of Fred Walker from the Lower Perkiomen Valley Regional Sewer Authority and appoint Peter McFarland to that Regional Sewer Authority. Is there a second? Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you, Peter. Look forward to your service on that very important authority. Item 3, announcements. The Planning Commission will meet next week on October 26th at 7 p.m., and the Zoning Hearing Board will meet the following evening, October 27th at 7 p.m. Item 4, comments and other business. I'd like to start by asking Chief Turtle, who's in attendance this evening, to give us an update on the status of the School Resource Program Officer, or School Resource Officer Program, rather, which for many years now has been a joint venture with the Methacton School District.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we're all aware, the Lower Providence Township Police Department and Methacton School District have been joined with a program for the school resource officers at Arcola Middle School as well as Methacton High School. The original program began in 2006 strictly at Arcola and was expanded in 2011 by contract with the school district. Those contracts expired January 31st, 2017. With that in mind, we began discussions with Dr. Zerby from Methacton concerning the contracts and any potential changes to the program going forward. Those discussions started in early April this year. Those discussions were driven mainly by a directive of the Methacton School Board during their budget discussions for their current budget year to meet with Lower Providence and Worcester Township in the hopes of exploring potential cost sharing for the program. As it currently stands now, Methacton and Lower Providence cost share for the program with no input from Worcester directly. Dr. Zerby explained that due to a potential budget issue, there was a chance that we may see a reduction in the program. Specifically, they were looking at a reduction at the Arcola School, not at the high school. Dr. Zerby and myself, as well as Ms. Rudolph, have had some discussions with Worcester, specifically their township manager, Tommy Ryan, on several occasions. On June 23rd, I completed a letter at the request of Mr. Ryan with some supporting documentation which was delivered to Worcester, basically explaining what our needs and desires were for going forward with the program and requesting some cost-sharing effort on their part. To date, I have not received any response from him with regard to that letter. During subsequent budget meetings, the school board discussed their options at length, and ultimately they decided for their budget for 2016-2017, they would be reducing $100,000 the school resource officer program budget. That was subsequently voted on June 28th by the school board and passed. On June 29th, I received a letter from Dr. Zerby indicating to me that Methacton School District would not be renewing the SRO contracts as they stand at this point on January 31st, 2017, and that was based on a 6-month caveat in the contracts that we needed notification either to move forward with a new contract or to withdraw. They've elected to withdraw at this point. That being said, we have still continued to work towards a resolution to keep the program in place as is. We've had a number of meetings, both with Dr. Zerby and with Ms. Rudolph. Currently, we are discussing moving in a direction for one officer at the high school. With that being said, I think people need to understand that the high school is not in our primary jurisdiction. Therefore, our officers that operate over there are cross-sworn as a Methacton School Police Officer as well as a Lower Providence Police Officer. We mentioned that for that officer being over there, there's a lot of unanticipated costs that the school district isn't covering, specifically command staff supervision, day-to-day supervision, detective support, civilian support, that should that high school officer have an issue, that we provide because they are one of our officers. Additionally, we had a discussion concerning the Arcola School reduction from a full-time staffing level to a part-time staffing level, at which point we indicated that discussion could move forward, but there would be some ramifications in that if they were not willing to support that program financially, obviously we would need to take a look at a different direction. Our current thought process is that would become a community policing position where we will give support to the schools, but it wouldn't be a full-time position as we have now, where we have Officer Barber stationed at the school. On August 23rd, I delivered a written proposal to Dr. Zerbe with our program interest. That proposal was delivered, I believe discussed amongst the members at the school district, and on October 6th, I received a counter proposal from Dr. Zerbe detailing what they were searching for in their program going forward. I subsequently delivered a second proposal to them with some adjustments to ours in addressing some of the concerns they had, and ultimately on October 18th, myself and Supervisor McFarland attended the school board meeting where we had an extensive discussion concerning the face of the program, at which point their administrative staff presented what they believed the program would look like. At this point, we do not have a resolution for how we're going to look come February 1st, 2017, but we are still actively trying to negotiate a presence in the school, which I feel strongly about, our Board of Supervisors feels strongly about, and that presence would entail a community policing officer dealing in the SRO program to fulfill our needs, to make commitments to the children in the school district and support them and make it known to them that we are there for them in a friendly relationship to avoid any potential issues that we're seeing nationwide. We feel strongly about that. We have a commitment towards that. But ultimately, it becomes a financial decision which the school board needs to decide on what direction they want to take.
Thank you, Chief. Since the inception of the program, the Board of Supervisors here in Lower Providence has strongly supported the program. The safety of the children in Lower Providence is foremost in our concern, even when those children attend Methacton High School, which is outside our jurisdiction, but the school to which the majority of the children who are residents of Lower Providence attend. So we appreciate your efforts and look forward to hopefully reaching a resolution in the near future.
Thank you. We'll continue to try and make that happen.
Thank you.
Chief, I just have a couple questions, clarifications.
Sure.
So my understanding is that in 2011, the high school established their own police department, correct?
Correct. What happened in 2006 when we began the program on grant funding, it was strictly based in Lower Providence Township at our Arcola School and supported the elementary schools in our township. We were approached on a number of different occasions by Methacton to put an officer in a high school, and our response was, that's not our jurisdiction. We can't just arbitrarily do that. And the way that Chief Carroll and the powers that be at the time decided to handle that was we formed, by court order, the Methacton School District Police Department, and they subsequently contracted us to put one of our officers in their building.
Okay, so Methacton has technically its own police department that we staff with one officer. They pay for that officer, but the residents of Lower Providence Township are the ones that are paying for all the overhead in terms of the training, the insurance, the police cars, the command staff, the detective force.
Correctly. As it currently stands now, Methacton High School, or Methacton School District, pays 100% of the officer's salary and benefits for the high school officer. But that does not cover training, vehicle, insurance, liability, anything along that line. That is absorbed by us, as well as any of the supporting functions that we provide, the supervision, the detective resources on a daily basis.
If there's an emergency situation, the backup call to the Lower Providence police officers, I'm assuming will be the first ones there?
I will guarantee you we will be the first ones there.
Okay. And so Methacton has decided to cut their budget for that program?
Currently, as we stood prior to the June 28th board discussion, the program was roughly budgeted at $299,000 to support both officers. That budget was reduced to $200,000, with Dr. Zerbe requesting some augmentation with other services that may not specifically relate to the police department.
And Worcester contributes nothing to the overhead of that police department?
The only contribution that Worcester has would be through the school district taxing. However, Lower Providence pays a contribution as a township as well as the school district taxing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a small point on following that up, Chief. The $299,000 that was in place for the prior school year did not fully cover the cost of 2 officers at that level. Is that right?
That is correct. They paid 100% for the high school officer, and the agreement for Arcola is 75% Methacton, 25% Lower Providence.
So even under the current agreement as written, Lower Providence is currently paying some cost of this program from its own budget, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Chief, I just have a very quick question. So from what I recall, when we expanded the program and added the officer in the high school, some of the reasoning for that was because of the success that we were seeing, the school district was seeing by having an officer in Arcola.
That was absolutely a part of it. I believe another part of it was a response time issue related to the services in Worcester.
Okay, and your officers that you place in the schools, do they have any specialized training other than, regular police duties?
They do. They go through school resource officer training. Both of our new officers, Officer Cutting and Officer Barber, completed that about 3 weeks ago. That was a basic course. There is an advanced course which we hope to send them to, but that's all contingent on the funding and how that comes about in the next contract, hopefully.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you again, Chief. Continuing on with comments and other business, is there any other business from the board?
I would just like to point out that the Township Library is having their fall fundraiser on Friday evening, October 28th at Chadwick's. It is a comedy night. The main comedian is Methacton's graduate and Methacton's own Chip Chantry. It'll be a great time. It's at Chadwick's. It starts at 8 o'clock. You can buy tickets at the library website. So please come out and support the library and have a great time laughing with your friends.
Thank you very much. Madam Manager, Mr. Solicitor,
Nothing.
staff? Okay. Item 5, courtesy of the floor. Would anyone like to speak this evening? Okay. Moving on to item 6, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye, opposed, motion carries. Our next meeting will be here on November 3rd. Thank you for coming out tonight. Have a good evening.